So the first coach I evaluated was Riverside High School head football coach Erie Williams. Erie was a very disorganized coach, and I think he had some anger management issues. Players were very confused as to what was going on. They did not know what plays they were running. They didn't even, because the team had first team and second team, they didn't know which team was supposed to go on which drive. A bad example of Coach Williams' anger management issues was after a player was injured. He clearly got a concussion, and Coach Williams yelled from the sideline that that player was weak and was showing a poor effort, and yelled at him to get up despite the fact that he was clearly dazed and clearly injured. After each bad play and penalty, he called his players' effort weak and did not really treat his players very well. So it was very disappointing to see that. But the second coach I evaluated was Greer High School head football coach Will Young. Coach Young, one of the most disciplined coaches probably in South Carolina. I believe he might have won a state championship. He always goes far whenever he's in the playoffs. Very disciplined. In fact, so disciplined at one point that during special teams, you know how they talk about players will muffle punts and kick returns. This coach, did not have a single returner back there to receive balls during a punt. He did not want anyone near the football. He delegated a lot of responsibility to assistant coaches. Each position coach addressed their particular position during the games. He had his coaches use iPads to film drives, and then so he could review the tape with each player between each series. Very democratic, loved his players, high-fived them, and gave them words of encouragement, asked for their input. The third head coach I observed was the St. Joe's Middle School head football coach, Ron Goodwin. Coach Goodwin was he spent most of his time detailing concepts and explaining concepts and plays to his athletes. He taught them the basic fundamentals of football, which is what should be taught at middle school. Middle school should be taught learning how to play football and how the fundamentals work. So he taught them formations and concepts such as tackling at the knees. One thing bad about Coach Goodwin was he had displayed very poor sportsmanship. During one time in the third quarter, his first team went back in after he had a second team playing in the second half because his team was up 36-0 for most of the game. That was a very bad show of sportsmanship, putting your first string back in after you had your second string in all second half. He ran a very pass-heavy offense in the first half, but in the second half he moved to a more run-style, heavy run offense. The fourth coach I evaluated was Riverside Middle School head football coach Chad Martin. He was very enthusiastic about his job, clapped his hands, talked to each player on the middle school team. He was enthusiastic. One thing he stressed was the importance of the offensive line. He wanted the offensive line to block properly, wanted them to make sure the quarterback got enough time to pass the ball. He was very democratic. Another thing he warned, this was to both his wide receiver and his cornerbacks, he wanted them to watch the ball. Too many times when someone doesn't watch the ball, they end up making a mistake, turning the ball over. So he stressed that his players watch for the ball and that they don't make a mistake and turn it over. And he also stressed to his cornerbacks, if you can't catch it, knock it down. Don't try to go for that big play when you know you can't do it. A lot of times that'll happen. The cornerback will actually end up giving up a big play to a wide receiver. It doesn't go well. So, and they said, if you can't catch the ball, knock it down. And then the fifth head coach I evaluated was the Greer Middle School head football coach, Noah Blossom. And he was also diplomatic, similar to the Greer High School head coach, Will Young, very diplomatic, loved his players. And one thing he stressed on was hustle. He wanted his players to hustle to the line of scrimmage, wanted them to hustle in each play, wanted them to hurry up to get back to the sidelines after a series was over. Another thing he stressed was do not overthink plays. He did not want players to dwell on their past mistakes. Dwelling on it can harm the team and harm what can happen in the future. He just wanted them to say, just forget about it, move on, don't overthink it. Mistakes happen. Another thing he stressed was pressuring the quarterback. One of his defensive line to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, try to force him into making a mistake. He was very organized and democratic. Officials liked him. The team committed very few penalties, so he was very good. And that is it for all my 5 head coaches.